happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to another Chamber Check-In episode from Idaho's only five-star accredited chamber. Today, we get to hear from Wesley Farrell. He's the owner and founder of Western Foothills Constuction. I'm going to bring him on screen right now. Hey, Wes.
How you doing?
Awesome. Hey, thanks for carving out some time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. These chamber check-ins have been designed to help share our member stories, their programs, services, products, you name it. But I love sharing a little bit about the people. And as a relatively new chamber member, you had joined, and we got to talking on the phone, and I thought, hey, this is really cool, an opportunity to help share what Western Foothills is all about. And then I got to looking at your website and read your About Us story, and I was like, okay, we got to share. So, Wes, as you know, the chamber is the region's business advocate, and I'm so glad that you joined with us, and I'm looking forward to connecting. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first? When did you get started, and a little history and background?
Well, originally from Central Washington, ended up going to school at Boise State from 08 to 2012. And, like a lot of younger kids, I'd still say, I thought I knew what I wanted to do and ended up being wrong. But, you learn as you go. And so I actually majored in international business originally because I had aspirations to be, have you ever seen 30 Rock with Tina Fey and Alec Baldwin? So I wanted to be Alec Baldwin. I wanted to wear a suit, sit in a corner office, and have scotch in my beck and call. And it turns out the only thing that I like is scotch. So not exactly the best fit for me, but you just kind of roll with it. So ended up meeting my wife in Boise, and we traveled around the last 10 years for her career. And in that time, I had a, let's just say, unique experience going through corporate America. Not anything I planned on doing or, getting into, but I kind of fell into third-party logistics and, went that route, slinging freight, as they call it, and talking to truck drivers and negotiating rates and stuff on behalf of shippers and receivers. And then tried a stint in real estate, which not for me. Let's just say that. It takes a special person for that, and I am not that special person. So I actually got back into third-party logistics, but working with the shippers and receivers, and so more of the owner side rather than the carrier side. And that was a really good fit for me initially, but it got to the point where it was too comfortable, too predictable, and it just got kind of boring, which is what prompted me to apply for a job at Amazon. And I actually had a really cool role there where I was part of performance management, implementation of new strategies and SOPs and stuff like that. And so I had like a really wide reach and touched every single fulfillment center in the network. And, at the time we were in Arizona, and my wife could kind of see I was getting to that point where I was a little bored and, kind of wondering what's next and all that fun stuff. And she kind of prompted me to think about going back to school. I'm like, what am I going to go to school for? I was like, what do I get into? And she's like, well, anytime we go out anywhere, you're always incredibly interested in the building. You're like, I wonder how that got put together. And then you like to tinker with things. So have you thought about construction management? And I was like, that's a good idea. I'll check it out. And so looked at Boise State. They didn't have an online program at the time. Being in Arizona, not something that I could really work. Same with ASU. They didn't have an online program at the time. So I fell into Indiana State. And at that point, I cut my ties with corporate America and started with a small GC immediately after we moved up to Oregon, and started pushing a broom, packing lumber, learning how things function and work, and, finished 3 years of school in 2 years while working full time, and fell in love with the industry. And, here we are. So that's kind of how I got into it. And a little roundabout way, would I change what I did and would I go to trade school? Probably not. I had a blast in college, loved it, a lot of great experiences. Probably would have been a little more practical with my expectations and, what I like and things, but, it got me here eventually, right?
I love that story because what you've described to me is a journey of, of things that have come up. We plan for the future, and it's probably rare that students graduating college get placed right in their career, right? It takes
Exactly.
a little bit of time. So tell me a little bit about Western Foothills Construction. It's the name first, because I always wonder why the names, how people come up with names.
That's
And
fair.
then talk about what you are offering.
So Western Foothills Construction's kind of always been in the back of my mind. I've liked the name Western Foothills because it incorporates my initials without having my name explicitly on it. So if circumstances changes or what have you, like it's a marketable product, and then, somebody's not using my name at the end of the day. If, I sell to a larger company or what have you, right? So just kind of like, that was the mindset. Also, technically we're the Western Foothills of the Rocky Mountains, even though we don't call them the Western Foothills. It seemed like it fit. I like the name. That's kind of why I rolled with it. So it gets me connects me a little bit to the business name without explicitly being like West Farrell Construction. So,
Right. Yep.
But yeah, it's always kind of been a thing in the back of my mind. I've always had like things that I like to do outside of my 9 to 5. I've always been kind of entrepreneurial and, trying to find ways like, oh, I wonder if this would work. And like, I tried my hand at like an Etsy store making handmade stuff and whatnot. And yeah, I like that aspect of it. I like the development side of things. And so when I got into construction, the goal was always to open my own GC. And with my wife's career being what it is and having to move around so much for her because she's a lot smarter than me, let's just say that, we didn't know exactly where we were going to end up, when we were going to end up there and whatnot. And so I ended up starting with a smaller GC, they did like 30 million a year in gross receipts, like a good mid-sized builder, lots of exposure to a lot of different things very quickly. Anything from like swapping door frames to concrete tilt buildings, pre-engineered metal buildings, things like that. So really good experience. And then as my wife's training, went into from residency to fellowship, I needed to be more flexible, got in with a regional builder out of Los Angeles, and, purely project management, purely corporate retail and restaurant and stuff like that, all up and down the I-5. So another good set of exposure. And once we found out we were coming to Boise, it was kind of like, all right, that's the time. Once we, get you settled, get you established, make sure everybody's comfortable, that's when it's going to happen. And so about 6 months after being here, that was the time we felt was right. And so that's when, started the company. Actually just got started with it a couple months ago, about 3 at this point.
Okay.
And so super new, despite, nearly a decade of building experience, brand new to the business side of it and, getting my feet wet that way. So, but in terms of services, we do purely commercial construction, nothing residential at this time. It's not to say that we won't someday, but right now we do anything that is office, restaurant, retail, medical, dental, industrial. We're mostly focused on tenant improvements, so that's the remodel world of commercial. So that's kind of where we're trying to fit in for now, and like to grow into doing ground up again and, bring people in to, work with me and, expand on that. But, right now the tenant improvements is where our sweet spot is.
Yeah. I'm looking at your website and I see a lot of retail,
Yeah.
and all of your services as a GC, commercial construction, focus on tenant improvements, remodels, and new building construction. I love it.
Yep. And with commercial, you get such a wide variety. Like you could be working at a 150-year-old building one day, you could be doing ground up the next day, you could be swapping a door frame in Class A lease space the next day. Like right. It just changes so much, and like that variety is what keeps me like in love with the industry. So
your portfolio and gallery of work looks great. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I would encourage anyone who's looking at doing some tenant improvements or any construction teams out there needing a hand, give Wes and Western Foothills Construction a call. Your mission and vision also spoke to me. Tell me a little bit about, your core focus and how that drives you always?
So the thing about construction is happening less and less now is like it gets a bad rap. You've got this, oh my gosh, I've got this terrible experience. I got hosed, I got screwed, whatever the situation is by my contractor. Like they either didn't listen to me, they weren't, doing what they were supposed to do. They did something completely different, or they took my money and ran. Like it's becoming less and less, but like it's still a oh my goodness, what am I thinking?
Like a black mark.
It's still a notion that's tied to the industry. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And so like my whole thing is like where I've found success is like I'm very transparent with my customers. Like if there is something wrong, I will explain the why. I will explain which avenues we have to go down, the pros, the cons, and everything like that. And, getting into the nitty gritty. I don't try to like, beat around the bush or like make things seem rosier than they are. And in the commercial world, that typically lands a lot better because people want to know what happens to their bottom line, what's the delay, what's going to push out, what's not going to push out, how can we avoid it, and things like that. So from that aspect, like I really want to provide an honest and transparent service to anybody I work with. And that's what I've done and what has made me do well in this industry so far for the builders I've worked for. And then on the flip side is a lot of times you get general contractors that just try to push the problems down. So like in the building world, GC is here, and then you got your subcontractors, your suppliers, and then everything kind of trickles down. I don't like the model where, the GC just kind of forces deficiencies down the line and it ultimately ends up at somebody else. I try to build, honest and mutually beneficial relationships with all my subcontractors. Even from the standpoint of if I overlook something and it's genuinely there and I should have caught it, that's not their problem. It's not the customer's problem. That's my learning experience. And that's how I treat it. And I expect them to act the same way. And, we build a relationship of trust that way because ultimately construction is a collaborative effort. Yeah. Everybody from the owner, whoever's providing the money, whoever's providing the materials, the services and everything in between, it's all a team effort. It's all a giant supply chain. And the whole goal is to avoid any and all roadblocks that you can. And you can't do it if somebody falls, right? So that's kind of what I hope to do is, just make things honest, transparent, and, mutually beneficial for everybody at the end of the day.
What I hear from successful developers, general contractors, is that word you just said right there, collaboration. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the key to success in the industry. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. All right. I just want to read one more thing. So Wes, from international business goals to pushing brooms and carrying lumber to collaborating on and overseeing multi-million-dollar projects, is there anything else while we have you today that you'd like to educate the listeners on?
So the thing I want to touch on is the Treasure Valley. We have a lot of great builders, which is awesome. The flip side to that is it's comically easy to get a contracting license here. If you got $50 and you can get insurance, you can be a contractor. So what I want to highlight is if you're thinking of building or you're thinking of like possibly doing this project at some point in the future, engage with a builder, whether it's me or one of the other reputable builders in town. Like build a relationship with somebody you trust because ultimately it's going to yield far more benefits than saving, 2, 3, 4% on the bottom line. It's one of those things where like builders don't owe their tenants a fiduciary duty, which is something people don't think about or understand. They're not obligated to do what's in the best interest of their clients. Successful builders do. And building the relationship and making sure that you're working with somebody that is comfortable and competent, you're comfortable with and competent, know that they are competent is going to be the biggest thing, regardless of who you choose to work with. So I just urge everybody listening to review their book of work, talk to people that have worked with them in the past, and build a relationship that's more than just what can you do for me, and then cut ties and move on with life. I mean, there's so many avenues that it could go down, and I just want everybody to have a good experience with builders as the industry tends to shift that or continues to shift towards that way.
Well said, Wes. I've got your website scrolling in the bottom of the screen. Yeah. I'd encourage anyone who's wants to learn more about Western Foothills Construction, check out the website, read his About Us page and background, and check out the portfolio of work. Wes, Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for your investment in the chamber. You know, we always, the best thing about the chamber is members doing business with members. And I just encourage that if anybody's looking for, in the commercial world right now, looking for an elevated general contractor, look to Wes.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me on, and look forward to, contributing to the chamber in the years to come.
Awesome. Hey, stay tuned and like and share our program today. And tomorrow we get to hear from Executive Director of FY Idaho, as Executive Director Brenda Wilson. Until then, have a great day. Bye, Wes.
See ya.